August 13th, 2020. Millions of Fortnite players open the game and hit the buy button. Same as any other day. They're buying skins, emotes, V-Bucks, the usual. Nobody's thinking about antitrust law. Nobody's thinking about the App Store. They just want to play. And that's exactly what Tim Sweeney was counting on. While all those players were clicking buy, Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic Games, was sitting somewhere with his finger on a completely different button. He knew Apple would delete Fortnite from the App Store within the hour. He knew exactly what was coming. He pressed the button anyway. This wasn't a glitch. It wasn't some junior developer forgetting the rules. It wasn't a miscommunication. It was a planned corporate ambush, and Sweeney had been planning it for months. To understand why this war happened, you have to go back to 2008. Steve Jobs gets on stage at WWDC and announces the App Store. The pitch is clean. Any developer on the planet can build an app and sell it to millions of iPhone users. Apple handles the distribution, the payments, the security. You just build the thing. Sounds like a great deal. And for a lot of people, it was. There was just one line in the terms that would matter more than anything else 15 years later. Apple takes 30 cents from every single dollar spent inside any app on any iPhone. Doesn't matter what the app is. Game, subscription service, digital purchase, doesn't matter. 30 cents. Every time. No exceptions. No negotiation table. No sliding scale. No way out. Nobody pushed back in 2008. The App Store was new. The opportunity felt massive. A 30% cut to reach 1 billion users? Fine. But then years passed. The iPhone became the most used device on the planet, and that 30% just stayed. By 2020, $64 billion had flowed through the App Store in a single calendar year. Apple's services division, which is mostly the App Store, was generating more profit than most countries' entire tech industries. The tax was still 30%. Nobody had ever successfully challenged it. Developers had two options: pay up, or build for Android and accept that you're leaving serious money on the table, because iPhone users spend more. That's just a documented fact. So the vast majority paid. They complained on Twitter, they grumbled at conferences, and then they kept paying. Tim Sweeney is not a typical tech CEO. He's not the guy who went to Stanford, got funded by a VC, and built a startup. He started Epic Games in 1991, in his parents' spare bedroom, in Potomac, Maryland. He was 19 years old. He coded everything himself. His first product was a game called ZZT that he sold by mail order for $20 a copy. Not exactly the origin story of a man who'd one day take on Apple in federal court, but by 2017, Epic had built Fortnite, and by 2020, Fortnite was basically its own economy. 350 million registered accounts worldwide. Travis Scott did a concert inside the game in 2020, a live event, inside a video game. And 12 million people watched it at the exact same time. Simultaneously. Live. Inside a game. That's more than most stadium tours sell in an entire year. Epic was making hundreds of millions of dollars a year off V-Bucks alone, and a massive chunk of that, depending on the platform, went straight to Apple. Not because Apple helped make Fortnite. Not because Apple did anything for the game's success. Just because it ran on iPhones. Sweeney had been publicly calling out Apple's 30% cut for years. He called it highway robbery in one interview. He compared app stores to a landlord who demands 30% of every business operating in their building. Apple's response to all of this was essentially, "Thanks for the feedback." The cut stayed at 30%. So Sweeney decided to stop talking and start swinging. What he came up with wasn't just a lawsuit. It was a whole operation. And it had a launch date. Epic spent months preparing. Lawyers on standby. PR team briefed. A full antitrust lawsuit sitting in a folder, ready to submit the moment Apple made their move. The date, August 13th, 2020. A Thursday, right in the middle of summer, when people are bored and online. Step 1. Epic pushed a quiet Fortnite update to iOS with a new payment screen. Pay through Apple as normal, or pay Epic directly at 20% less. Apple got nothing. Step 2. Apple's systems flagged it within hours and pulled Fortnite from the App Store entirely. Step 3. The video. Epic released a shot-for-shot parody of Apple's famous 1984 Super Bowl ad, the one where Apple was the rebel hero. In Epic's version, the corporation on the screen was Apple itself. Step 4. The lawsuit filed the same day. 45 pages, clearly written weeks in advance. #FreeFortnite trended globally within hours. 5.2 million tweets in the first 24 hours. Both Apple and Google pulled Fortnite from their stores the same day. Epic filed a second lawsuit against Google in parallel. But the Apple case was the one everybody watched. May 2021. Federal courthouse in Oakland. 3 weeks of hearings. And Tim Cook, CEO of the most valuable company on earth, took the witness stand for the first time in his life, in public, under oath. Epic's argument: the App Store is an illegal monopoly. One gate, no competition, 30%, or don't exist on iPhone. Apple's response: our platform, our rules, our security. Cook answered questions for hours. He was calm, professional, said, "I don't recall a lot. You're halfway in. If this is hitting, you know what to do. Every story on this channel starts where the official version ends. If that's why you're here, subscribe and hit a like." Now back to it. The verdict is stranger than you think. September 2021. Judge Yvonne Gonzalez Rogers delivers the ruling. Epic lost on 9 out of 10 counts. Apple was not found to be an illegal monopolist. Fortnite stayed off the App Store. Epic owed Apple back the bypassed commissions, around $6 million. But there was count 10. The judge ruled Apple had to allow developers to add links inside their apps pointing to external payment options. Just a link. Nothing more. Spotify used it, Netflix used it, Amazon used it. Every app that had been paying 30% for years now had a legal escape hatch. That single ruling cost Apple billions in projected revenue. Both companies appealed immediately. Sweeney didn't win the case, but he made the 30% cut into a public debate. Before the lawsuit, developers complained about it in private. After it, regulators were reading the headlines too. South Korea moved first. In 2021, they passed a law banning app stores from forcing developers to use their own payment systems. The Korean tech press started calling it the Fortnite Law. The EU passed the Digital Markets Act, aimed directly at Apple and Google as gatekeepers. Under the DMA, Apple had to allow third-party app stores on the iPhone in Europe. That would have been unthinkable 5 years earlier. Japan, the Netherlands, the UK all opened their own investigations. In March 2024, the U.S. Department of Justice filed its own antitrust lawsuit against Apple. One game company, one lawsuit, one App Store update, a global regulatory avalanche that's still running. Fortnite came back to the App Store in 2024, 4 years later. Not because Apple decided to be nice, because the legal environment had changed enough that they didn't have a choice. If this story opened your eyes to how tech empires actually work, like it, share it, subscribe, and write your opinion in the comments. Well, I'm not saying goodbye to you. See you soon.